What's up? It's Andy Grammer with Jag.
Hi, this is Carly Rae Jepsen, and you're listening to Jag.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Jonas hanging with Jag.
This is Heather Knox with the hottest Jag I've ever seen.
Ryan Seacrest with Jag.
It's B.O.B. checking in with my homie Jag. So much swag with my homie Jag.
It's the Jag Show podcast.
Welcome in. I am John Jagay. In my 2020 recap last week, I mentioned that we need to keep an eye on the big podcasting behemoths. Apple, Spotify, Google, and now Amazon. And in the time between when I recorded the show and when it was published, Amazon announced they are buying the podcast studio Wondery for $300 million. According to James Cridland of Pod News, Wondery has had international success where many other studios haven't. And they also have 11 of 2020's top 25 podcasts. And could Amazon Prime's need for content be a good fit for Wondery? Those are all mentioned in Cridland's column. There is a link to that in the show notes. Also getting into the podcasting and audio world, Twitter. Podcast app Breaker is folding after 3 years and joining Twitter. Now, Breaker had positioned itself as social media for podcasts, but by joining Twitter, that's going to expand Twitter's audio-only tweet capabilities. If you use Breaker as your listening app or your host, they've posted instructions on how to move elsewhere. That link also in today's show notes. Now, what do all these big moves by big players in podcasting mean? Well, former Jag Show podcast guest and OG podcaster Evo Terra thinks it means a dethroning of Apple as the undisputed king of podcasting. But the flip side is that podcasters are going to have to make sure their shows are available on many, many different platforms as each of these platforms gains market share. Evo's column is, you guessed it, in the show notes. Of course, Apple falling from the dominant spot might not be a bad thing. Back to James Cridland of Pod News, who understands the tech side of podcasting far better than I do. Cridland highlights that Apple Podcasts may be sharing more of your data than anyone else. See, other podcast apps check the RSS feeds of shows you subscribe to, then they give you new content when it's available. Apple Podcasts, however, check in a way that reveals your IP address and other info, and it does it frequently. Cridland explains on Medium.com, linked in the show notes. While Spotify has made strides toward getting copyrighted music into podcasts, there's a downside. It's now becoming, kind of like SoundCloud, a place for bootleg and very questionably legal songs. Variety has an article explaining the loophole that people are exploiting. And finally, as we wrap up today, the first time you hear your voice, quote-unquote, on tape, or basically recorded in some way, you'll almost always be surprised it sounds nothing like you'd expect. I deal with this with clients and radio folks all the time. Why? Physics. The way you hear your own voice is how it rattles around in the bones between your jaw and your ear canal. That, of course, is not how it comes out to the rest of the world. I always tell clients that, but there is a nice deep dive on Medium from Ryan Fahn that gets into the psychology of your voice sounding different and what that can mean for your brain. If you enjoyed today's show, feel free to share it with your network by social media, email, or any other means. And for help with your podcast or with creating a new podcast, you can feel free to reach out. My website is jagindetroit.com, or you can email me, jag@jagindetroit.com. As always, stay healthy and stay safe. I will talk to you next week. Later.
Thanks for listening to the Jag Show podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe in Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. For help with your podcast, find Jag on social media at Jag in Detroit or on the web at jagindetroit.com.